Dan, I don't know if you saw, but Gleyber Torres was ranked by MLB Network as the number 10 best second baseman in Major League Baseball. What are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like I was looking at Twitter to see a lot of Yankees fans' responses. And I mean, as expected, it was split kind of 50-50. I mean, you have half of the fan base who still loves Gleyber and wants him to, I don't even know if I can say like bounce back to the player that he was, but just kind of root for him to do well. And then you have the other half who's like, yo, Glaber's lazy. It's like the Gary Sanchez effect now, where it's like Glaber's lazy. He's not good. Get rid of him. But let me hear your thoughts on what you think about MLB Network's ranking.
Dude, I got to own up the L, and I did it a few weeks ago, I believe, because initially, right after the season ended, I was in my George Steinbrenner phase. I was like, get rid of everybody, and Gleyber Torres was included in that. Nah, yo, shout out to MLB Network because I think they got this one right, which is rare these days. I mean, like, I haven't really watched these player rankings like for years. Ever since in 2019 they put Aaron Judge at like the 12th best player in baseball, and that kind of started my like real like defending of Aaron Judge because of how bad that was on their part. But yeah, it wasn't this video or this list that they came out with that got me thinking about it. But like I said, a couple weeks ago, I was looking at his baseball reference page, and you look at the fact that he had a 4.1 WAR, and then it hit me. I was like, why am I acting as if this is some sort of problem with the Yankees? And not that I ever truly thought that, but even just from the standpoint of not appreciating him enough or underrating him, yeah, I think a lot of Yankee fans have, maybe because of how highly touted he was coming up and the 2019 season he had, maybe our expectations were set pretty high offensively, which maybe he can't reach that peak anymore. But the 4.1 WAR I just mentioned, that's his career high. So that
Really?
being the case, yeah, because of the defense. In 2019, he had the 38 homers, but the defense wasn't great. I think he only finished like a 3.5 or something like that. Last year, 4.1, only hit 24 homers, but
Yeah, but you
and
don't
it,
you don't think that that's like a little, I hate to cut you off. Even if like you include those WAR numbers there, I'm still taking 2019 Glaber over 2022 Glaber any day of the week. You know what I mean?
yes. See, I don't know. I don't know. Am I including August as to what Gleyber really is? Because
I'm including the whole season.
no, I understand, but like, I think you do got to look into the context of things. Like for 5 out of the 6 months, Gleyber Torres was, in my opinion, the best version of Gleyber Torres that we ever saw. Knowing that player exists, I'll take that over what we know we got in 2019, which both are really good.
But also at the same time, you can't really knock people for being disappointed with what we've gotten from him in the past couple of years, right? We all thought that he was like the shortstop of the future. He was in the same class as like the Tatises and
Not for
all
me.
those.
No, I was calling up WFAN when people were going. That was when people were saying Gleyber was better than Judge. I think the hype on Gleyber also got a little bit too high. Something that we fall into as fans with prospects is you'll see a guy, say, take Volpe, for example. Automatically, I think Yankee fans will consider, if Volpe doesn't finish his career with, like, I don't know, being the best shortstop next to Derek Jeter of all time, like they'll almost look at it as an automatic failure. Where it's like, no, first of all, a prospect getting into the big leagues and becoming an established, legitimate, good baseball player, that's already a W. That's already a success. So knowing that Gleyber is a good second baseman and could be as good as a 5 WAR player, we have him for 2 more years. I'm just saying, I think we just don't, we haven't really, we're not as appreciative of Gleyber maybe as we should be.
Here's the thing. I think regarding Gleyber Torres, I think that yes, he's a good player, but I think that the appearance of it isn't that good, right? Because bro, you could have a really good meal for dinner, but it might not look like an artisan dish. And I think that's the problem
I
with
know what
Gleyber
you're gonna
Torres because I
say.
think that there's a lot of instances where like, bro, when he's bad, like it just looks really bad, just
I
in
don't,
terms of like
I've heard so many people say that, and you're describing it very closely to how we would Gary back in the day. I know you've made that comparison before.
not necessarily
I
at the
think it's
same level
very, I
though.
think it's, but like, are you talking about like the Gary tag, for example, that sort of thing where he just looks like he has no idea what he's
So
doing?
okay, so
Because I don't get that as much with Glaber, but
there's
yeah, go
stuff
on.
like that where it's like there's just kind of like boneheaded things that you're kind of like, yo, what just happened there? But then
Yes,
also at the same time, I feel like there's also like narratives pushed through the media that lead people to think poorly of Gleyber Torres. Like one, bro. I mean, you have Brian Cashman coming out and publicly saying like, yo, Gleyber Torres showed up out of shape. Or you
which
have
is terrible,
like the trade rumors where that apparently affected Gleyber Torres' performance.
laughable.
Like these are just things where you don't really hear it about a guy like DJ LeMahieu. And I feel like that's why fans don't really get on DJ LeMahieu as much when he struggles because that narrative isn't pushed about him. You know what I mean? I think Gleyber and Gary are two victims of just kind of being villainized and maybe being like scapegoats for the Yankees, just in terms of Gary Sanchez was a prime example of it. I mean, we've heard so much stuff come out in the media about like Gary Sanchez's work ethic and his lack of hustle. And I feel like Gleyber Torres has been the new victim of that. So I think
Okay.
that's why fans kind of
Yeah,
come
yeah.
after him a little
But
bit
the
more.
thing is, though, and that's different, is for Gary, it's almost a little more reasonable for you to be upset with those sort of things because by the end of his Yankee tenure, like the play was just, it didn't make it justified. Gleyber, one, I think a lot of the stuff you're mentioning, which is said by a lot of the fan base, can be a little bit overblown. He has boneheaded plays. I don't think they're like as frequent as some may think they are. But also, once again, he's a 4-WAR second baseman. The good outweighs the bad. Like it's nothing that you
Sure.
can't really get over. And I'm liking Gleyber, man. Like I
But
feel I'm so bipolar as a fan. I feel
I
like I
will
all of
say
a
though,
sudden, yeah.
I can't get too attached to Gleyber Torres as a player just because I view him as having zero future with the New York Yankees. And like that's just me being completely honest. I viewed Gary Sanchez the same way on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like, yo, he's 100% signing a long-term contract here. Gleyber Torres for me is at like a 3, bro.
I disagreed.
I don't see any chance of him signing
The
a
only way I
long-term
see
deal here.
that, not the only way, but if I were to think that was likely, I would think it would be because Gleyber has like a nice year this year, and then in 2024, like balls out of his mind to a point where like the Yankees think he like outperformed and he gets a crazy bag from another team. But I don't think there's any reason not to think that. And this is the realization I've kind of come to. Like, who says Gleyber Torres is a bust? I know you're not saying that, but that's kind of the mindset I'm coming to now. And with that not being the case, like, why wouldn't you want to really bring him back? I'm
Yeah,
so
sure.
pissed that 1 month happened. If August didn't happen, which it did, and a big part of it is on Gleyber, if he was legitimately affected by trade rumors, which is a joke, and that has to be figured out. But outside of that 1 month, man, like Gleyber was having a freaking great
Yeah.
year,
No, no,
you
and
know?
I feel like I want to make it clear that I don't dislike Gleyber Torres.
No, you're
I
not
just
coming off that
don't
way. No.
I just don't have the fondness of I'm indifferent towards Gleyber. You know what I mean? And I can understand both sides. I can understand the people who love him and think that he's kind of being underrated by Yankee fans. And uh I also
You also,
I also understand the side of people who completely dislike Gleyber Torres. So I get both sides of the argument, but whatever.
you're a fucking sheep, bro. Go on.
Why?
No, I'm
Because
just
I can
kidding.
understand both sides of an
Yeah,
argument.
give me a break.